So this guy named Krista Concepts left a comment on one of my videos asking me to do a video about what it means to be a Marxist-Leninist in America. And the first thing I thought when I read the comment was, I think that there's a problem of American exceptionalism that comes along with this kind of question. And American exceptionalism, traditionally defined as like the right-wing variant of American exceptionalism, meaning that there's an element of the right wing that kind of propagates the idea that America is the best country in the world, that we're perfect, that there's nothing wrong with America, that we don't have to do anything to change America, yada yada yada. It's actually kind of fallen out of favor by like the modern reactionary right. Even Trump campaigned on making America great again, which kind of implies that America is not great right now, which isn't really an American exceptionalist, line of thought. But aside from all of that, there's an American exceptionalism that is more relevant to the discussion at hand that kind of, it comes from the left. It comes from like the ultra left, like deviation from, fucking normalcy. But it basically, you've heard it 1,000 times. It goes along the lines of like America is exceptionally evil. That's the base. That's the base assumption of the left-wing American exceptionalism, is that America is essentially evil. That America is essentially negatively different than the rest of the world. That the rest of the world does not share the sins that America has committed. Okay? Along with this second type of, left-wing American exceptionalism, I think comes the idea that Marxists and socialists and communists in this country have to embark on some kind of like unique journey to reach the end that all the other Marxists in the world have embarked upon. The way that we get there is going to be somehow fundamentally different. And that's just not really a premise that I can agree with. It's not one that makes much sense to me. Marxism it's an international phenomenon. Its premises go beyond the confines of any specific civilization, and it is that fact is attested to by its almost universal application in different circumstances. There are communist movements, there are socialist movements all around the world. It isn't confined to any one area. It's had an emphasis in the areas on the periphery of Europe and of the Americas, but that's a question of geopolitics. That's not a question of Marxism, really. I mean, it's important to our understanding of Marxism, but it's not a fundamental question of Marxism, I don't think. I just don't think there's a lot of, I think there's value in a reassessment of what it means to be a Marxist-Leninist in America, but I think it really just comes down to reasserting what it means to be a Marxist-Leninist anywhere, and rediscovering what it means to be a Marxist-Leninist anywhere, and that's the first step I think any American Marxist needs to embark upon in their journey, in their desire to understand. I think the first step would have to be just learning Marxism, just studying Marx and Lenin and Stalin and Mao, and not getting all of your information from memes and the internet, and YouTubers. That's the first step, is to read Marxist literature and Marxist theory. It really is more important than whatever else you think is going to get you there, if you want to get there, okay? Along with that, it's important for Marxists in America to study the international, the international workers' movement. You know, we can't confine ourselves to any one country's, you know, expression of Marxism. We can't just study the Soviet Union. We can't just study, you know, Europe in the 18th century. We can't just study China. We have to look at everything. We have to really accept the legacy of Marxism as our own. Okay, we can't be afraid of it. You know, that's fundamentally one of the most that's one of the fundamental aspects of what it means. Is we can't be afraid of this legacy. We have to own it. Along with owning it, just from like a practical point of view, it's not just about owning the theory. It's not just about owning the practice. It's not just about, you know, it's not just about accepting that, but in terms of actually how you communicate your ideas to other people in this country, you have to be, I don't want to say proud of it, but you have to wear it on your chest. You know, don't conceal. You know, don't try to. The biggest mistake you can make when talking to someone about politics is to fucking lie to them, to purposely mislead them. You know, to act like you believe something different than what you actually believe. And I see a lot of communists doing this, where they think, oh, I'm talking to a liberal, so I have to tone down my actual politics so that they don't, you know, so that they don't think I'm crazy. I can't call myself a communist in front of X, Y, or Z, because then they'll just immediately, like, nobody cares. The point of being a communist in this country should be, you know, if you're talking to people about politics, it should be to make them sympathetic with communists. You're not, that's the thing, is you're not trying to fucking convert them to anything. You're not trying to convert them to an ideology. You're trying to make them have faith in the communist movement. Make them have faith in you as a communist, and make them associate you as a communist with the idea that you know what you're talking about, that you would be capable of explaining something that they don't understand to them, or explaining, you know, why why a communist party would propagate certain policies and not other policies. You know, what actually needs to change about this country before anything could get better. You know, they need to be able to trust you, and in order to trust you, you can't lie to them. You can't, you know, pretend to be a liberal so that they don't think you're crazy, or you can't pretend to be a right-winger so they don't think you're crazy. You just have to own it. Any space you go into where you're talking about politics, you know, I'm not saying you got to start every conversation with "I'm a communist," but it doesn't really hurt. You know, if you can have a long and thought-provoking conversation with someone, and then at the very end of it you tell them that you're a communist, that means that they will associate that long and thought-provoking conversation with communism. You don't have to change anything, I think. You know, you just need to build that association and that trust. Okay? My answer to this question can really be boiled down into two main points. The first one being, we need to be Marxist-Leninists, okay? We need to understand this theory. We need to understand the history of this theory. We need to understand the places wherein it has been put into practice, okay? And the second part of being a Marxist-Leninist in America is just, we need to be Americans, okay? We need to understand America, specifically. You know, we can't spend all of our time thinking about other people, okay? We can't spend all of our time thinking about what people did in other countries in different circumstances. We have to understand America, okay? It sounds like stupid simple, okay? And it sounds like maybe I'm oversimplifying it, but really, what else is there? If you're a Marxist-Leninist, you have to understand your theory, you have to understand the philosophy of Marxist-Leninism, and then you have to understand the context. And it'll bounce back. I'm not saying you figure out Marxism and then you figure out America. I'm saying you do it back and forth. You do it dialectically. You learn about Marxism, that informs your understanding of America. You learn about American history, that informs your understanding of Marxism. And I'm not just saying just learn about America either. You have to learn, you know, it is beneficial for you to understand these ideas put in place in other contexts. But at the end of the day, we're talking about this country when we're in this country, okay? Because that's our immediacy, you know. That's immediately what we can make an impact on politically, okay? You know, so that's my answer. What does it mean to be a Marxist-Leninist in America? It means you be a Marxist-Leninist and you be an American. And you know, there's a lot of things that involves casting aside the idea of American exceptionalism from both sides, because America is different, but it's not exceptionally anything. It's just a little different. And then be an American. Figure out this country. Figure out the history of this country. Every Marxist needs to know what the CIA is. Every Marxist needs to know what the FBI does. Every Marxist, everybody needs to know what these things are. But specifically, if you're going to call yourself a communist in this country, you need to understand the actual ruling class that exists in this country. And I'm not saying I'm a fucking expert on all this shit. I'm just saying that this, as a project, this is what needs to be done. We can't just blindly walk around. We can't just, you know, assume that we understand everything because of like caricatures of the 1800s. You know, we can't just operate off the assumption that capitalism hasn't changed since Lenin. We can't operate off the assumption that our country hasn't changed since Lenin. Things have happened in this country. The ruling class has changed, okay? Its methods have gotten far more complex. You know, its ability to infiltrate working class movements has exponentially developed, okay? And if we just assume that every single person calling themselves a socialist is going to accurately represent socialism or communism or Marxism or whatever, then we are fucking fools, because the ruling class has been misrepresenting these ideas to the working class since they were introduced to this country, okay? And all of the fucking left-wing deviationism, that's where it comes from, okay? You'll find that the right-wingers, there's going to be a lot more working-class people among the right-wing than there are going to be working-class people among this fucking ultra-left, like, internet liberalism, okay? These radical liberals, okay? You're going to find way more working-class people in the right-wing deviation, okay? They're both wrong. They're both deviations from that golden Stalinist center, okay? They're both wrong. But the ruling class of this country likes to distort Marxism, okay? That's where all of this comes from, okay? It doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's not just people getting it wrong. It's not just people not doing their homework, even though that is part of it. Read your fucking books, dude. They aren't just to sit on your shelf. Read them. Fucking read them. But there's also intentional distortion, okay? Learn about the CIA, learn about the FBI, learn about COINTELPRO, learn about MKUltra, learn about these programs, learn about the development of the mechanisms that the ruling class uses to maintain rule in this country, okay? And hopefully, as a result of all of us embarking on this kind of venture to understand Marxism and to understand our country, we can make some kind of impact. We can build some kind of oppositional movement. But until we do this, I wouldn't trust us with it. If I rounded up every fucking communist on Twitter and formed a state, I wouldn't trust it right now, okay? I wouldn't fucking trust it. So it's a process of us developing our thoughts, us developing our understandings, and making that translation, embarking upon that translation in the context of America to the American working class. It's no more complicated than that, thankfully, and it's no less complicated than that, unfortunately. That's all I really have to say about this. I mean, I'm trying to do a little bit more of a freeform style because I feel like it's more conducive to like my workflow. But I'd really like it if people commented and I don't know, ask me questions or fucking whatever. I don't care. I'm still on the fence if I'm even going to keep doing this. So, you know, the only thing that keeps me interested in making stuff like this is your attention. The only reason I was going to stop after the Batman video because it was such a pain in the ass to fucking get past the YouTube censors, but you know, someone engaged with me and I felt like I had to respond. So if you like this kind of stuff, keep doing that. Keep engaging with it, and you'll keep getting stuff out of me because you know I'm a people pleaser. Um, y'all have a good night or day or whatever. Peace.